Genetics. Genetics is the study of heredity, that is the inheritance of characteristics. In genetics, we attempt to explain the similarities and differences between parents and offspring, and also between the siblings and members of the same species. That is, in any given species, there will be similarities and differences among the members. So, for example, if you look at this family tree, starting with the parents, you have the father and the mother. The two share some similarities and also differences. The differences in terms of the hair color and the eyesight. The male parent wears specs while the female parent does not. Now, these two parents give rise to sons and daughters. If we look at the sons and the daughters that result, there are differences and similarities also. Just to highlight the differences, you can see the hair color, that's brown, red, and black. Even there are differences in terms of the eyesight. There are those that wear spectacles and those that do not. These sons and daughters can also give rise to the next generation, and that is the grandsons and granddaughters. So, starting from these parents, they give rise to two children, a son and a daughter. Now, the daughter marries a dark man and they give birth to a dark son, dark-skinned son, who wears specs, while the son marries another person who is brown hair, and they give birth to children that look different, have differences, that is. So you see, there'll always be similarities and differences within the members of the same family and even members of the same species. Now, there are two aspects of genetics that you're going to consider. There is a heredity part of it, that is the inheritance of characteristics, and then the variations. Now, we start by looking at the variations. Variations are described simply as the observable differences in the characteristics. So these are the differences in characteristics shown by organisms of the same species. And these differences include those between the descendants and of the parents. There are two types of variation. These differences can be continuous or discontinuous. We look at the continuous variations. So the continuous variations. Now, in continuous variation, the individuals in the population show gradual differences from one extreme to another, forming a smooth change. For example, height, or even skin pigmentation among human beings. If you look at the skin pigmentation in natural human population, there is variation from one extreme, which is white, to black at the other extreme. Now, in between, you have different grades of the complexion, from light, medium, dark to the black. Now, this variation from one extreme to the other shows a smooth change. So another example of characteristic in humans that has continuous variation is the height. In any human population, when taken, there will be variation in height from the shortest to the tallest in the population. Other organisms that show continuous variation is in plants, where the lengths of leaves on a single plant do vary from the tallest to the shortest. If you pick any tree, you look at the leaves, there'll be those that are long and then there'll be those that are short. Same with the seed color. For example, in this particular plant that has seeds that range from red to white. So in between you have that different shades of red, from the most red to one that is white. So these are examples of continuous variations. Now, if you are to plot the frequency of individuals in the different classes, that is, of the characteristics with continuous variation, so if you plot the frequency in different classes against the classes, a normal distribution curve is obtained. You have the classes. Let's say, for example, if it is height, you say from 50 to 60 centimeters, 61 to 71 centimeters, like that. Those are the classes. And then the number of individuals that fall in that class represent the frequency. So if you're to plot the frequency of individuals in a particular category against the classes, then you get this normal distribution curve. So the same that is depicted here. The number of individuals in each class is equivalent to the frequency. You get this normal distribution curve. Now, characteristics that have continuous variation have the following features. They are not distinct categories, that is from one class to the other. They just blend. There's a continuous, smooth gradation. 2, they are controlled by several pairs of genes. If, for example, the height in a person is controlled by several pairs of genes, not just one. And thirdly, the expression of this characteristic is influenced by the environment. For example, the height to which an individual will attain the full potential of the height is influenced by environmental factors such as diet and diseases. Now, a second category or type of variation is known as discontinuous variation. Discontinuous variation. And this is one whereby the individuals show distinct or clear-cut differences with no intermediate between them. That is, they're different classes, and each class is very distinct from the next one. Example of characteristics that show continuous variation in humans include tongue rolling. One can either roll their tongue or they are non-roller. So if non-rollers cannot roll their tongues, while rollers can roll. So there are no intermediates in between. One is either a roller or a non-roller. Another variation that shows discontinuous characteristic is the clasping of the hand. When you clasp your hands together without thinking about them, now characteristically it will be either the left thumb that is on top or the right hand thumb that is on top. So some people are left-handed when it comes to clasping of the hands, while others are right-handed, depending on which of the thumb will come on top. A third characteristic that shows discontinuous variation is the type of earlobe. There are two types. You have the free earlobe, one that is, the lobe here is free from the body wall, while there is the attached earlobe, one that is apparently fused to the body. So if you look at your classmates, some will have the free earlobe, while others will have the attached. Another example of a characteristic with discontinuous variation are the fingerprints. There are four main fingerprints: the hole, double hole, arc, and loop. So each of your finger will have one of the four. You can have all the four represented on different fingers, but one can only have one type of fingerprint on each type of the finger. So, for example, your right hand index finger can have the whole fingerprint and not any other, while the left hand index finger may have a different fingerprint altogether. But the position of the fingerprint is unique. There are no two persons that have exactly the same type of fingerprints, size of the fingerprints, on the same type of fingers. They are very unique. Each person has a unique type of fingerprints distributed on the different fingers. Now, the characteristics that show discontinuous variation have the following features. As mentioned before, there are distinct categories. That is, they don't blend. One is either loop, for example, or arc. There are no intermediates in between. Two, they are controlled by a single pair of genes. Each characteristic that shows discontinuous variation is controlled by a single pair of genes. And thirdly, they are not influenced by the environment. They are not influenced by the environment at all. Such that if you were to plot the frequency, that is the number of individuals in each category against the category, then you get these distinct bars which do not show any smooth gradation or change from one type to the other. Now, we look at sources of variation. What causes these observable differences in a population? There are a number of causes. One is the intermixing of genes during sexual reproduction. You recall, during sexual reproduction, especially cross-fertilization, where the two gametes come from different individuals. For example, in humans, you have two adults, the female and the male. Each, through the process of meiosis, produces gametes, the sperm and the egg. Each of these gametes brings its own set of genes which are brought together during fertilization. So the resulting zygote, which will grow into the baby, has new genetic combinations. So there's a formation of new genetic combinations, and thus new characteristics as a result of intermixing of genes during sexual reproduction. Another source is crossing over of genes during prophase 1 of meiosis. During gamete formation, crossing over may occur whereby homologous chromosomes exchange segments of their chromatids. You have this homologous pair of chromosomes with different sets of genes. There is a capital A and capital B and small a, small b on the two different chromosomes. Now, during prophase 1, the non-sister chromatids may exchange portions as a result of the chiasma formation, that you end up with new genetic combinations as depicted here. Initially, we had the capital A gene occurring together with capital B. But after crossing over, there's a new genetic combination whereby the capital A occurs together with small b, and small a occurring together with capital B. So that is a new genetic combination that comes about as a result of crossing over. A third source of variation. A third source of variation is known as the independent assortment or random assortment or orientation of chromosomes during meiosis. Again, during the meiosis process, the way the homologous chromosomes align themselves at the equator, the way one pair aligns itself is independent from the way the other pair will align itself. For example, if you look at this first pair, the red chromosome is on the left side while the blue is on the right. Now that arrangement has nothing or is not influenced whatsoever by the assortment of the other pair. So in this first assortment or orientation, both the red of the long and the short occur together on one side, that is the left side, while the blue chromosomes occur on the right side. But there is another possible assortment or orientation whereby you have the long red and the short blue on the left side and the long blue and the short red on the right side, so that each orientation will present new possibility of combinations. So in the first instance, this A, you end up with this type of combination. Take it for example here that this chromosome, the long red is responsible for brown eyes, while the short red is responsible for black eye. And here, the long blue is responsible for blue eyes, while the short blue is responsible for red eye. This is one combination that is brought about as a result of this arrangement. But if you have a different orientation, like in this second example, then you'll end up with this combination, whereby the brown eyes that is due to this long red occurs together with the red eye that is due to this short blue. Same case here, the blue eyes that is brought about by the long blue occurs together with the black eye that is brought about by the short red. So depending on the number of pairs of chromosomes that are present, each pair behaves independently, and the way it orientates itself has nothing to do with the orientation of the other pairs. So a very large combination of possible arrangement is possible as a result of this random assortment or random orientation of chromosomes during meiosis. A third source of variation is mutation. Mutation plays a very important role in variation. Now, mutation refers to changes in the structure, that is spontaneous change in the genetic makeup of an organism. Now, these changes may be inherited by the offspring and therefore can bring about variations. So any change in the genetic makeup can be the change within the structure of the chromosome, or the number of chromosomes constitute a mutation, and this change will be reflected in the characteristics of the offspring. Now, what is the importance of variation? Variation plays a very important role because it enables the species to adapt to and survive new or changing environment, because it is as a result of variation that a given species is able to adapt to changes in the environment.